attempts to address and meet, but the gold standard in the fire service is the NFPA standards, National Fire Protection Association. They literally have standards on every aspect of firefighting, from the, next slide, from the equipment that we use, to the apparatus, to the gear that we have, to our air packs, to our radios, to sprinkler systems. Every aspect is covered by the National Fire Protection Association. The standard that I want to talk about today is NFPA 1710, which describes how resources should be deployed throughout the community for an effective response. Next slide, please. In particular, the National Fire Protection Association 1710 standard calls for the adequate deployment of resources throughout a community to address three specific needs, or three specific areas, that being the fire suppression operations, emergency medical services, and our special operations delivery, which includes our hazardous materials, our aircraft, and our technical rescue areas. So basically, we need our resources deployed throughout the community to address these specific needs. Next slide. Not only do we need to address response times, as the chief mentioned, but we also need not only for those resources to be deployed, but to be adequately staffed. And NFPA 1710 calls, basically did an analysis of the jobs requirements for each of those critical job functions, and was able to determine, based on that every heavy apparatus, meaning our engines and our ladder companies, should be staffed with a minimum of 4 personnel. I'm happy to say that the Houston Fire Department has met that standard. We have had 4 people on our apparatus since 2001, following the tragic line of duty death of Captain Yonke in 2001 in a high-rise fire. Since immediately after that, we've had 4 members staffing, and we're very grateful for that. There is another aspect of this standard, though, that we currently do not meet, and the standard calls for certain areas, particularly areas with high hazards, high occupancies, specific target hazards, should actually be staffed with an increase of 5 or 6 people. That would include areas such as the downtown, where we have a high-rise district. Those are very technically challenging fires. The medical center, the Galleria area, our petrochemical and ship channel area would be areas that, according to the standard, we should increase our staffing above and beyond the 4-member staffing. Next slide. The standard, the NFPA 1710 standard was designed to be able to effectively respond in a community, have resources to effectively respond to what we consider our bread and butter fire, to be able to strategically and tactically respond to the typical residential fire, a 2,000 square foot house, 2-story house, and to be able to meet certain tactical and strategic needs. That being the establishment of incident command, an uninterrupted water supply, the ability to deploy 2 hand lines to attack the fire, to have a support person for each of those attack teams, to have a company to perform search and rescue, to have a company that can perform ventilation, to have operators to operate the engine and the ladder company, and to have a rapid intervention crew available in the event of a firefighter mayday. So that's what the standard was based on, having adequate resources to be able to meet those needs in the community. Next slide. Not only does the standard call for having the resources in the community, but how quickly can we put those resources into action? The standard clearly defined, we believe in the fire service, it's always been a well-known fact that an early aggressive interior fire attack while the fire is still small and controllable and manageable is the best way, the most efficient way to reduce property loss and to save lives in our community. There's unfortunately, due to time, we weren't able to include a very interesting video, but we can provide it to you. It was a video that was done by the Underwriter Laboratories, NIOSH, and NIST in combination. And it shows a residential living room from 30 or 40 years ago with its typical furnishings that you would have found in a living room 30 years ago, and one today, a modern day construction, modern day furnishings. And a small trash can fire was lit in both of those simulations. In the old legacy, what they call the legacy fire, that room did not become fully involved in fire, what we call a flashover, for 24 minutes. In the modern day construction, it reached flashover in 3 to 5 minutes, and that's because of the modern day construction, energy efficiency, the hydrocarbons and plastics that are used in modern day furnishings. And so our business has changed dramatically in the last 30 years. It is more dangerous, it is fast, things move quicker and they're hotter, and it's ever increasingly important that we're able to respond quickly and efficiently with the resources that we have. So very clearly, our ability to respond quick and efficient with the right number of personnel and the right number of equipment makes an absolute difference in our ability to control fire situations.
You know, I'd like to bring your attention to the last bullet point here too, because this is absolutely important, is that the ability to suppress fires is undeniable and predictable. That is that we have studied fires. The American Fire Service has studied every type of fire now, and we know exactly what it takes to put out certain types of fire. So although you see, looks like randomness happening on the fire scene, there's a real orchestrated firefighter attack that takes place, and we focus on firefighter rescue, citizen rescue, putting a fire out, and really property conservation in those orders, in that order. And if you just think about it, when we arrive on a scene, we find standard conditions, we apply a standard action, and we want a standard outcome. Once we start increasing the time that firefighters arrive on the scene, because we're using this standard, if we increase the time to an incident, say for a pumper by a minute or 2 minutes, that changes the dynamics of that fire incident. That changes the conditions. We have to apply different actions, and the outcome actually changes. So I just wanted you to kind of understand that we do apply standards here. Thank you, Chief. Next slide. Also, you all have a copy of NFPA 1710, and thank you very much. I know you may or may not have time to go through that. And you also have a copy of our annual accreditation here. The Commission on Fire Accreditation International, the Houston Fire Department is the world's, and I'm going to say it again, the world's largest accredited municipal fire department. And we take great pride in that. And we are the largest and the accredited because we follow the standards. We try to watch those standards and we adjust based on those standards, and any change in our deployment model impacts those standards. Accreditation is a self-assessment and evaluation model that, and I say self-assessment, we participate in this assessment process. It's not just all internal. We have external forces that actually watch us. And what we do is that we examine past, current, and future service levels and internal performance, and we compare those to industry best practices. And the industry, once again, is always changes. Most recently, we changed the way we fight wind-driven fires, and that was as a result of Houston losing firefighters Harlow and Hobbs a few years back. The entire industry looked at that. Many studies were conducted in flashover chambers and actual structures, and the entire American Fire Service has changed the way it fights wind-driven fires now as a result of what happened on one of our fires. So we're really connected to the greater community of the fire service. The Fire Service Organization, we determine community risk and safety needs to develop a standard to cover. That standard to cover is actually where our fire stations are placed, where we have engines, where we have ladders, where we have district chiefs, where we have ambulances. That's the standard to cover piece. We continuously evaluate our performance because we're always looking for continuous organizational improvement. Next slide, please. So the governing body is the Center for Public Safety Excellence. They're the governing body that supports the Commission on Accreditation and the Commission on Professional Credentialing. The last bullet there is it serves as a governing body for the organizations that offer accreditation, education, credentialing services to first responders and fire service professionals. Since I've been here, we've actually participated in those for the first time in the history. I'm not blowing my horn, I'm blowing the horn of the members here, that we are participating on the national level like we never have before. We have our members that are participating at the National Fire Academy and graduating from those institutions. We have our members sitting on as chairpersons on many national organizations. So the Houston Fire Department is stepping up. And I'd just like to brag about that a little bit. Next slide, please. Yeah, you always hear a lot about ISO, the Insurance Services Office, and there's people that think that this is important and other people think it's not important. Why we believe it is important has really nothing to do with whether it changes insurance rates, whether it brings businesses to the community, that's probably something you would be interested in and might want to debate amongst yourselves. But why we think it's important is, it, once again, it's a tool for us to evaluate what we do. It evaluates how we respond to structure fires. There's a classification process from 1 to 10. We are the largest fire department in the entire country that's rated number 1. So once again, Houston has stepped up and we're ranked number 1. Next slide, please. This is the last slide, and I guess what I would want you to note on this is that if you look at the last point there, number 4, all this information is really to help you as policymakers make good decisions, and that's our job. And for me, you know, I think we can always get better at giving you information. We're ready to meet with you one-on-one anytime. But the last slide says that this is about the community. This is about risk reduction for the community. It recognizes that community efforts are not just about firefighting, but it's also about fire prevention, public safety investigation, fire investigation, public safety education. So we meet those standards throughout our entire organization, and we just wanted you to know that. Although we meet the standards, once again, Houston is a very robust system. Since the beginning of this calendar year, unfortunately, the city of Houston has had 9 civilian deaths as a result of fires. We've had 1 death, 1 fire that resulted in 3, and then we had the other resulting in 1. So we are continuing to do the best we can for the community. We understand the challenges that you face as policymakers. We understand the fiscal challenges that you face. But I just wanted to provide you with this presentation and offer an opportunity to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation, Chief. You referenced a